You ever get that quiet little voice in your head, wondering if you're really smart enough? It's a feeling of self-doubt that I think hits a lot of us, and today we're going to unpack that. You know that feeling? You're in a meeting or with friends, and it seems like everyone else is just getting it a split second faster than you are? That little nagging thought that maybe you're just not quite keeping up? Well, what if I told you that you might actually have a much higher IQ than you give yourself credit for? And what if the very things you beat yourself up about are actually the clues? Because according to neuroscience, the science of our brains, your mind might be hiding its power in some really surprising ways. So, let's dive right in with that feeling of self-doubt. We're always told it's a weakness, right? But what if it's the total opposite? So if you're the kind of person who's constantly questioning yourself, constantly second-guessing, guess what? You are in excellent company, and there's a really fascinating psychological reason for it. Yep, this slide pretty much nails it. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's kind of wild, right? The less a person knows about something, the more confident they tend to be. They think they're an expert. But the more you actually learn, the more you realize just how massive that subject is, how much you don't know. So that self-doubt, that's not a sign of weakness, it's often a sign of awareness. Okay, next up, let's get into some of those quirky little habits that we all have. The things that we might think are weird, but are actually signs of a seriously powerful mind at work.
All right, sign number one. And yeah, this is one that a lot of us are probably a little embarrassed to admit we do.
Yep, you talk to yourself. I'm talking about mumbling under your breath while you work on something, or even having full-on conversations when you're alone. Sounds a little crazy, I know, but it's basically a cognitive superpower. I love this quote because it just completely flips how we think about this. You're not losing it. You're actually coaching your brain, laying out the problem so you can see it more clearly. They did studies at the University of Wisconsin that found talking things through out loud literally helps you process info faster. Even Einstein was known to do it. Okay, on to our second sign. This is another one that gets a bad rap, and a lot of people mistake it for just anxiety. You know what I'm talking about? You overthink everything. You replay conversations, you analyze every little decision, you map out 50 different possible futures for something super simple. Well, this isn't just a quirk. It's a sign of a brain that's firing on all cylinders. And here's the science behind it. What we call overthinking, neuroscientists have a much cooler name for: metacognition. It's literally the ability to think about your own thinking. It's like having a built-in analysis tool that lets you see a problem from every single angle. Okay, you're gonna love this next one, because I guarantee it's something you've been told your whole life is a major character flaw. That's right, you procrastinate. We're all taught that it's the ultimate enemy of getting things done. But what if it's not about being lazy? What if it's about your brain being efficient? So, psychologists at the University of Calgary came up with this term, active procrastination. And the idea is, your brain isn't just being lazy, it's actually saving its heavy-duty processing power for a challenge that's worth it. It ignores the boring stuff and waits for something complex, something that really matters, before it goes all in. Sound familiar? That's probably why you do your absolute best work right up against a deadline. All right, so we've talked about habits. Now let's shift gears and look a little deeper. Inside. Because how you perceive the world and process emotions, that holds some major clues too. Sign number 4, this one is all about how your senses take in the world around you. Okay, does the sound of a ticking clock drive you up the wall? Or someone chewing too loudly? Or just background noise that nobody else seems to even notice? This isn't just you being difficult. It's actually called heightened sensory processing. Basically, your brain is like a high-definition receiver, pulling in way more data from your environment than the average person. Now, this is amazing for spotting patterns no one else sees, but yeah, it also means you can get totally overwhelmed pretty easily.
All right, on to sign number 5. This one tackles the link between your brain and your heart, between intellect and emotion.
You feel emotions deeply. This one really flies in the face of that old stereotype, The cold, logical genius who's all brain and no heart. Turns out, modern science paints a very different picture. As this quote says, smart people don't just think deeply, they feel deeply. Your capacity for real empathy, for understanding the tiny little nuances and how people feel, that's not a weakness. It's a sign of a really sophisticated, complex brain. You process feelings with the same intensity you process facts.
So we've covered self-doubt, some seriously quirky habits, and even deep emotions. But what's the one thing, the one common thread, that connects almost every genius throughout history?
This is it, right here. The number one ultimate sign is that you just never stop learning. It's that unquenchable curiosity, that need to always ask why, to look for better answers, to keep learning long after you technically have to. Hey, the very fact that you're here right now, listening to this, trying to understand yourself better, that speaks volumes.
So all of this really pushes us toward a totally new definition of what it means to be smart. It's not about a test score. It's not about how fast you can do math in your head. It's about these much deeper qualities, that awareness of what you don't know, your ability to adapt, that endless curiosity, and a real depth of both thought and feeling. So instead of doubting yourself, maybe just take a second. Think about these signs. Maybe your intelligence doesn't fit into the neat little box society created. And maybe, just maybe, it is so much greater than you've ever given yourself credit for. So the real question is, what does your intelligence look like?